The stars looked different from the bridge of the eternal dawn. Empress Lyrelei stood before the massive viewing window, her silver hair flowing like liquid metal down her back. Her violet eyes reflected the distant suns as she watched her empire stretch across 3 galaxies. Every world she could see belonged to her people, the Zephyrians. "Your Majesty," Admiral Corvain said as he approached. His blue skin showed the respect marks of her royal guard. "The border inspection is complete. All systems report loyalty to the Empire." Lyrelei nodded slowly. She had ruled for 200 years, though she looked no older than a young human woman. Her beauty was known across every star system. Poets wrote songs about her face. Warriors died gladly just to see her smile. But today something felt wrong. "Show me the forbidden zones," she said. Corvain hesitated. "Your Majesty, there is nothing there worth your time. Just dead worlds and empty space. Show me." The hologram appeared between them. Red dots marked dangerous areas where no ship should go. Most were black holes or dying stars. But one red zone looked different. It had a yellow star with several planets. "What is that one?" Lyrelei pointed. "Sol system, Your Majesty. Also called the Terra system. The 3rd planet is marked as a death world. Our records say it has primitive life that somehow survived terrible conditions." Lyrelei studied the display. "How terrible. The gravity is 3 times what most species can handle. The air is poison to most races. The weather changes without warning. Wild animals hunt in packs. Disease spreads freely. No civilized being could live there. Yet something does live there." "Yes, Your Majesty. The beings call themselves humans. They are listed as extremely dangerous. Our ancestors marked the whole system as forbidden, after several exploration ships never returned." Lyrelei touched the hologram. The planet looked blue and green, almost beautiful. "How can primitive beings be dangerous?" "The records are unclear, Your Majesty. They simply say that humans should never be contacted. The planet must remain quarantined forever." Something about that struck Lyrelei as strange. Her empire had conquered thousands of worlds. They had defeated races with powerful weapons and advanced technology. Why would they fear primitive beings on one small planet? "Set course for the next inspection point," she said finally. Hours later, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Lyrelei ran to the bridge as red lights flashed everywhere. Her crew worked frantically at their stations. "Report," she commanded. "Hyperdrive failure, Your Majesty." The chief engineer called out. "The containment field is collapsing. We're dropping out of hyperspace." "Where?" The engineer's face went pale. "Sol system, Your Majesty. We're being pulled toward the 3rd planet." Fear filled the bridge. Lyrelei had seen her warriors face death without blinking, but now they looked terrified. The Forbidden Zone had claimed another ship. "Can we escape?" she asked. "Negative, Your Majesty. The drive is completely dead. We're caught in the planet's gravity." Through the viewing window, Earth grew larger. Blue oceans and white clouds covered most of the surface. Green and brown land masses dotted with what might be cities. It looked peaceful, even beautiful. Lyrelei could not understand why her people feared it so much. "Prepare for emergency landing," she ordered. "Send distress signals on all frequencies." "Your Majesty," Corvain said quietly. "Perhaps you should evacuate to a life pod. Let it carry you away from this cursed place." "I do not abandon my ship or my crew," Lyrelei replied. "We land together." The eternal dawn shook as it hit the atmosphere. The hull grew hot from friction. Through the window, Lyrelei saw forests and mountains rushing up to meet them. The ship's automated system searched for a safe landing spot. "Brace for impact," someone shouted. The ship hit the ground hard. Metal screamed as they crashed through trees and rocks. Lyrelei was thrown against a wall despite her safety harness. Everything went dark. When she woke up, silence filled the ship. Emergency lights cast red shadows everywhere. Her head throbbed with pain. Slowly, she stood and looked around. Broken equipment sparked around her. Several crew members lay unconscious at their stations. "Corvain," she called, no answer. She checked the bridge crew one by one. All alive but badly hurt. The communication system was dead. Life support worked, but barely. The ship had landed in a forest of massive trees unlike anything in her empire. Lyrelei tried to contact other parts of the ship, but the internal systems had failed. She would have to check on her crew personally. The corridors were dark and filled with debris. She climbed over broken pipes and torn metal panels. In the lower decks, she found more crew members. Some were awake and helping others. The ship's doctor, a thin Zephyrian named Velis, was treating the wounded. "Your Majesty," Velis said when he saw her. Thank the stars you're alive. Are you hurt? I am fine. What is our status? 17 crew members are seriously injured. The rest have minor wounds. But Your Majesty, there's something else. The air outside? It's wrong. Wrong how? Too thick? Too much oxygen. The gravity is crushing us. Several crew members collapsed just trying to stand. This planet is trying to kill us. Lyrelei felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. Each step took more effort than it should. Her lungs worked harder to process the heavy air. Even her royal guards, the strongest warriors in the Empire, moved slowly and carefully. Can we repair the ship? She asked. Velis shook his head. The hyperdrive is completely destroyed. We would need a full shipyard to fix it. And Your Majesty, the crew is getting weaker. This environment is poisoning us slowly. We have maybe days before we start dying. Through a cracked window, Lyrelei saw the forest outside. Tall trees swayed in the wind. She could hear strange sounds, animal calls unlike anything in the known galaxy. The Forbidden World was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. We send teams to explore, she decided. Find a way to contact the Empire. Find resources we can use. Find out why this place is so dangerous. Your Majesty, Corvain said as he limped onto the deck, one arm in a sling. No one should leave the ship. The records warn against contact with this world. We have no choice. We cannot repair the ship. We cannot survive here indefinitely. We must take action. But even as she spoke, Lyrelei wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The weight of the planet pressed down on her like the hand of an angry god. The air felt like breathing liquid, and somewhere in the forest outside, the primitive humans waited. She had ruled an empire and commanded fleets across the galaxy. But now, trapped on a forbidden world, Empress Lyrelei faced the greatest challenge of her long life. She did not yet know that the real challenge was not the planet itself, but the impossible beings who called it home. Jake Morrison heard the crash from 5 miles away. The sound echoed through the mountains like thunder that would not stop. Birds flew from the trees in panic. Small animals ran past his cabin without their usual fear of humans. He put down his coffee and picked up his binoculars. Through the trees, he could see smoke rising from the valley below. Something big had fallen from the sky, something that definitely was not supposed to be there. Jake had lived alone in the wilderness for 3 years. After losing his squad in Afghanistan, he could not handle crowds anymore. The noise of cities hurt his ears. The smell of car exhaust made him sick. So he built a cabin in the Montana mountains where the only sounds were wind and wildlife. He was good at living alone. The Marines had taught him to survive anywhere with anything. He could make fire without matches, find food where others would starve, and build shelter from sticks and mud. The wilderness felt safer than civilization. But now something had crashed in his backyard. And Jake's old training told him to investigate. He packed his backpack with medical supplies, tools, and water. His rifle went over his shoulder, though he hoped not to need it. The hike down to the crash site took 2 hours through thick forest and steep rocks. When he finally saw the wreckage, Jake stopped and stared. This was no airplane. The metal was too smooth, too perfect. Strange symbols covered the hull. Light still blinked in patterns he did not recognize. This was something from very far away. Well, damn, he said to himself. Jake circled the ship carefully. Parts of it had torn open during the crash. He could see inside through the gaps. The design was beautiful but alien. Everything curved and flowed like water made solid. Then he heard the sound. Soft, like someone breathing with great difficulty. Someone was alive inside. Jake found an opening large enough to squeeze through. The interior was dark except for emergency lights. The air smelled wrong, too clean like a hospital. He followed the sound of labored breathing deeper into the ship. In what looked like a command center, he found her. Jake had seen many things in war, but nothing had prepared him for this. The woman lying on the floor was clearly not human, but she was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. Her skin was pale like moonlight. Silver hair spread around her head like spilled mercury. Even unconscious and obviously hurt, she looked like something from a dream. But she was dying. Jake could see the signs. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Her skin had a blue tint that meant lack of oxygen. When he touched her wrist to check her pulse, her skin felt cold and fragile like glass. "Okay, sweetheart," he said quietly. "Let's see what's wrong." Jake's medical training kicked in. He checked her airway first. Clear, but she was struggling to breathe the thick earth air. Her pulse was weak and irregular. When he tried to lift her arm, he realized the problem. Earth's gravity was crushing her. Her bones were built for a lighter world. Around the command center, he found other crew members. All were unconscious or barely alive. All showed the same symptoms. These beings were suffocating and being crushed by the very air and ground of Earth. Jake made a decision. He could not save them all, but maybe he could save her. He built a stretcher from debris and carefully moved the silver-haired woman outside. Every step seemed to hurt her more as Earth's gravity pressed down. Her breathing became even more labored in the open air. Back at his cabin, Jake worked through the night. He used his engineering knowledge from the military to build devices that might help. A breathing mask with filters to thin the air. A harness to support her body against gravity. A bed that could tilt to help blood flow. It was like trying to keep a deep-sea fish alive on land. Everything about Earth was wrong for her body. For 3 days, she drifted between life and death. Jake barely slept as he monitored her condition. He fed her water drop by drop. He adjusted the breathing apparatus every few hours. He used ice packs to cool her when Earth's temperature made her fever worse. On the 4th morning, her violet eyes opened. She looked around in confusion, then focused on Jake. When she tried to speak, only soft sounds came out. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Easy," Jake said. "Don't try to talk yet. You're very sick." She stared at him with those impossible purple eyes. Jake could see intelligence there, and fear, and something like wonder. She was trying to understand what he was. Over the next week, she slowly grew stronger. Jake learned her name was Lirelai, though he had trouble pronouncing it correctly. She was some kind of leader among her people. The ship had crashed because of engine failure. Lirelai learned that Jake was human, one of the beings her people feared so much. But as she watched him work to keep her alive, she began to understand that the records were wrong about many things. Jake did not look like a monster. He was tall and strong with brown hair and kind eyes. His hands were gentle when he checked her injuries. He shared his food and water without asking for anything in return. When pain made her cry, he sat beside her bed and spoke in soft tones until she felt better. More importantly, Jake was doing the impossible. He was keeping an alien alive on a planet that should have killed her in hours. He had built medical equipment from scrap metal and forest materials. He had learned her body's needs through observation and adapted his treatments accordingly. "How?" she asked him one evening as he adjusted her breathing mask. "How what? How do you live here?" "This world. It tries to kill everything," Jake smiled. "Seems pretty normal to me. I grew up here. You adapt to what you have. The gravity, the air, the temperature changes. Yeah, it can be tough sometimes, but you get used to it. Humans are pretty good at getting used to things." Lirelai thought about that. Her people lived on perfectly controlled worlds where everything was designed for comfort. They had never needed to adapt to anything, but humans had evolved on this death world where adaptation meant survival. "Your ship," Jake said. "How many crew?" 47, she whispered. Jake was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. I could only save you." "The others," she nodded. She had known. In the days since waking up, no rescue had come. No signals had reached them. Her crew was gone, and she was alone with a human on the forbidden world. But strangely, she did not feel afraid. Jake had proven that not all the stories about humans were true. He was not a monster. He was just a being trying to survive like everyone else. That night, as Jake slept in his chair beside her bed, Lirelai looked out the cabin window at the alien stars. Her empire would be searching for her. Eventually, they would find this world and learn what had happened. But what would they think when they discovered that a human had saved the life of their Empress? What would they do when they learned that the primitive beings of the forbidden world were not the monsters they had imagined? Lirelai was beginning to understand that everything her people believed about Earth was wrong. The planet was not empty because life could not survive here. It was dangerous because life here was too strong, too adaptable, too impossible to kill. And if her people came looking for her with weapons and warships, they would learn that lesson the hard way. 3 weeks after the crash, Lirelai could finally walk short distances without collapsing. Jake had built her a support harness that helped distribute Earth's crushing gravity across her whole body. She still needed the breathing apparatus, but she could move around the cabin and even step outside for brief periods. It was during one of these walks that she truly began to understand what humans were. They had gone to check snares Jake had set for rabbits. The forest was quiet except for the sound of wind through leaves. Lyra moved carefully, each step requiring concentration. The harness helped, but Earth's gravity still felt like walking underwater. Jake moved differently. His steps were light and confident despite carrying a heavy pack. He seemed to flow through the forest like he belonged there. When branches blocked the path, he simply pushed through them. When rocks made walking difficult, he jumped from stone to stone without thinking about it. "There," he said, pointing to a rabbit caught in one of his snares. As he knelt to examine their catch, a low growl echoed from the bushes nearby. Jake's head snapped up, his body instantly alert. Lyra felt her heart race as something large moved in the shadows. A mountain lion stepped into view. It was bigger than anything Lyra had seen outside of a zoo. Its yellow eyes fixed on them with deadly intelligence. On her homeworld, such a predator would have required a full hunting party with energy weapons to defeat. Jake slowly stood up. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Lyra expected him to run or call for help or at least show fear. Instead, Jake spread his arms wide and stepped toward the mountain lion. He made loud, aggressive sounds with his throat. His body language changed from peaceful to threatening in an instant. The mountain lion studied him for several long seconds. Then incredibly it turned and walked away. A predator that could have killed them both simply chose to find easier prey. "How?" Lyra whispered when she could speak again. "They're smart," Jake said, relaxing back to normal. "It could probably take me in a fight, but it would get hurt in the process. Not worth it when there are easier meals around." "You scared it away just by acting aggressive?" "Mostly. Mountain lions usually avoid humans unless they're really desperate. We have a reputation." "What kind of reputation?" Jake smiled grimly. "The kind that says even if you win the fight, you probably won't enjoy it." That evening, Jake told her stories about human history, while she rested on the cabin porch. He spoke casually about things that amazed and terrified her. Wars fought in conditions that would kill most alien species. Expeditions to frozen wastelands and burning deserts just to see what was there. Humans who chose to live in places like the tops of mountains or the depths of jungles. "My great-grandfather fought in World War II, Jake said. "Spent 2 years in the Pacific fighting the Japanese. Lived on islands where the temperature hit 120 degrees. Ate bugs and roots when they ran out of supplies. Got shot twice and kept fighting." "That would kill most species in hours," Lyra said. "Killed plenty of humans too, but enough survived to win the war." Jake poked the fire with a stick. "Humans are tough, but we're not indestructible. We just don't give up easy. Why not?" Jake thought about that. "Maybe because our world taught us that giving up means dying. Everything here is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants. You learn to fight back or you don't survive long enough to have kids." Lyra watched the flames dance in the fireplace. Her people had never faced such challenges. They had built their civilization on garden worlds where everything was safe and controlled. When they encountered hostile environments, they either terraformed them or avoided them entirely. But humans had done the opposite. They had adapted themselves to fit their world instead of changing the world to fit them. "Tell me about your people," Jake said. "What's your empire like?" Lyra described the Zephyrian civilization. Billions of beings living on thousands of worlds. Technology that could reshape planets and create artificial suns. Fleets of starships that could cross the galaxy in weeks. Art and culture that spanned centuries of accumulated knowledge. "Sounds beautiful," Jake said. "Peaceful. It is. We solved the problems of war and hunger and disease long ago. Our people live in comfort and safety. There is no suffering in our empire. And no challenge either, I bet." Lyra nodded slowly. "No, we have eliminated all challenges. Our worlds are perfect. Our technology handles every problem. Our people want for nothing. So what do you do? I mean, if everything is perfect, what's the point?" The question caught her off guard. On her worlds, people spent their time on art and philosophy and pleasure. They studied the universe and created beautiful things. But Jake was right. There were no real challenges left. "We maintain what we have built," she said finally. "We preserve our civilization. But do you grow? Do you change? Do you become something more than what you were?" Lyra had no answer for that. Her people had reached a peak of development and stopped there. They maintained their perfection but did not push beyond it. Why would they need to change when everything was already ideal? The next day, Jake showed her his workshop behind the cabin. It was filled with tools and equipment he had built himself. Engines pulled from wrecked vehicles and rebuilt to run on wood gas. Solar panels made from salvaged electronics. A water purification system constructed from plastic bottles and sand. Most of this came from the dump, he said. People throw away amazing stuff. I just fix it up and make it useful again. Lyrelei examined a radio he had assembled from broken parts. It looked crude compared to Zephyrian technology, but it worked perfectly. More importantly, Jake had built it with his own hands from materials others had discarded. Why do you do this? She asked. You could buy these things new. Could, but what's the fun in that? Besides, building things teaches you how they work. If it breaks again, I can fix it. If I need something similar, I know how to make it. My people would simply request a new one from the fabricators. And if the fabricators broke? Lyrelei had never considered that possibility. The fabrication systems were maintained by automated repair drones. If those broke, other drones would fix them. The whole system was designed to be self-maintaining and perfect. But watching Jake work with simple tools and scrap materials, she began to see a different kind of strength. Her people had made themselves dependent on perfect systems. Humans had made themselves capable of building new systems from nothing. That night, Lyrelei's dreams were filled with images of her homeworld. Beautiful cities of crystal and light. Gardens where every flower was perfect. Beings who lived their entire lives without ever facing real hardship or genuine challenge. For the first time, it seemed empty to her. Safe and comfortable, but empty. When she woke, Jake was already up, starting the fire and preparing breakfast. She watched him work and realized something that would have been impossible to explain to her people. This primitive human, living alone in the wilderness with basic tools and simple skills, was more capable than most citizens of her advanced empire. He could survive anywhere, build anything he needed, and adapt to any challenge. Her people, for all their technology and knowledge, could not survive a single day without their perfect system supporting them. The Forbidden World was not dangerous because it was hostile. It was dangerous because it created beings who did not need perfect systems to survive. Beings who could thrive in chaos and build strength from struggle. Beings who might look at a galaxy-spanning empire and see not something to fear or worship, but simply another challenge to overcome. For the first time since her ship had crashed, Lyrelei was not thinking about rescue. She was thinking about what would happen when her people found her. What would they do when they met Jake and others like him? What would happen when the perfect empire encountered beings who had never needed perfection to succeed? The rescue ships arrived on a cold morning in late autumn. Lyrelei was helping Jake repair the cabin roof when the sky suddenly filled with silver vessels. 12 ships descended through the clouds like falling stars, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Jake stopped hammering and looked up. Friends of yours? Lyrelei's heart raced as she recognized the royal fleet. The largest ship bore the golden symbol of her sister, Princess Vylara. The others carried the war banners of Admiral Corvain's battle group. Yes, she said quietly, but I do not know if that is good or bad anymore. The ships landed in the valley below, crushing trees under their weight. Within minutes, armored figures were climbing toward the cabin. Lyrelei could see Vylara's distinctive blue armor leading the group. Behind her came Corvain and a squad of royal guards. Stay behind me, Jake said, picking up his rifle. No. Lyrelei stepped in front of him. That will only make things worse. Let me talk to them. Princess Vylara reached the cabin first. She was younger than Lyrelei, but just as beautiful. With the same silver hair and violet eyes, her armor was decorated with gems that caught the light like tiny stars. Sister, Vylara cried, rushing forward. Thank the cosmos you are alive. We have searched for weeks. Lyrelei allowed herself to be embraced, but her eyes stayed on Corvain. The Admiral was studying Jake with obvious suspicion. His hand rested on his weapon. Who is this creature? Corvain demanded. Step away from the Empress, savage. His name is Jake, Lyrelei said firmly. He saved my life. Impossible. These beings are primitives. They could not save themselves, much less a member of the royal family. Jake stood calmly despite having a dozen weapons pointed at him. Lady, you might want to tell your friends to relax. I'm not looking for trouble. It speaks, one of the guards said in disgust. How revolting. Lyrelei felt anger rise in her chest. This savage has kept me alive for a month. He built medical equipment from scrap metal. He learned my biology and adapted treatments. He risked his life to save mine. Vylara looked confused. Sister, you are clearly suffering from some form of psychological damage. These creatures are dangerous. The records are wrong, Lyrelai interrupted. Everything we believe about humans is wrong. Admiral Corvain stepped forward. Your Majesty, with respect, you have been trapped on this death world for weeks. The environment has clearly affected your judgment. We must evacuate you immediately for proper medical care. I am thinking clearly for the first time in years. Then you will understand why this planet must be sterilized, Corvain said. Your crash has contaminated the quarantine. The primitives have been exposed to our technology. They must be eliminated before they can spread word of our existence. Jake's rifle came up smoothly. That would be a mistake. Instantly, every alien weapon was pointed at him. The guard spread out, preparing to fire. Corvain smiled coldly. The creature threatens us. This proves how dangerous they are. Stop. Lyrelai moved between Jake and the weapons. There will be no killing. Not of him, not of his people. Sister, Vylara said gently, you are not thinking clearly. This world has poisoned your mind. This world has opened my eyes. Lyrelai looked at each of her rescuers in turn. Do you want to know why our ancestors truly marked Earth as forbidden? It was not to protect us from humans. It was to protect humans from us. Corvain laughed harshly. Protect primitives from the Empire? Absurd, is it? Look around you. Lyrelai gestured at the forest. This planet should have killed me in hours. But one human kept me alive for a month using basic tools and primitive medicine. He succeeded where all our technology would have failed. One lucky exception proves nothing. Then let me tell you about human history. Lyrelai began to recite the stories Jake had shared. Wars fought in impossible conditions. Explorations of places that would kill any other species. Humans who thrived in environments that were hostile to all other known life. As she spoke, she saw doubt creeping into her sister's eyes. Even Corvain looked less certain. Even if this is true, the Admiral said finally, they are still primitives. They have no technology, no starships, no weapons that could threaten the Empire. Jake spoke up quietly. You sure about that? Corvain turned to him with contempt. What could you possibly have that would concern a galactic empire? Well, Jake said, pulling a small device from his pocket. This satellite phone, for starters. He pressed a button. After a moment, a voice answered. Jake, where the hell have you been? We've been tracking those alien ships since they entered the atmosphere. The aliens stared at the device in shock. Primitive beings were not supposed to have global communication networks. They were not supposed to be tracking spacecraft. Tell General Martinez that our visitors are mostly friendly, Jake said into the phone. But they're talking about sterilizing the planet. Might want to mention that to the folks at Cheyenne Mountain. Copy that. Should we implement Protocol 7? Not yet. But keep the big guns ready just in case. Jake ended the call and looked at the stunned aliens. You see, we've known about you folks for a while now. Amazing what you can learn when you're patient and pay attention. Corvain's face had gone pale. Impossible. Our sensors detect no advanced technology. That's because we're sneaky. Comes from living on a planet that's always trying to kill us. You learn to be careful. The Admiral activated his communicator. Fleet Command, run deep scans of this system. Look for anything we might have missed. After several tense minutes, the response came. Admiral, we're detecting massive artificial structures throughout the system. Hidden bases on the outer planets, orbital platforms around the primary star. Energy signatures consistent with weapon systems of unknown design. Corvain staggered backward. How is this possible? Same way we survived this death world, Jake said. We adapted. We learned. We prepared. Princess Vylara looked at her sister with new understanding. The Empire. We have made a terrible mistake. Yes, Lyrelai said. We marked humans as dangerous primitives and left them alone. But we should have realized that anything capable of surviving on this world would eventually reach for the stars, and when they did, they would be stronger than anything we had ever faced. Corvain was speaking rapidly into his communicator, trying to coordinate with the fleet, but it was too late. Human ships were already moving, surrounding the alien vessels, not with obvious aggression, but with quiet confidence. Your Majesty, came a voice from orbit. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We would like to discuss peaceful relations with your empire, but we would prefer to do so without weapons pointed at our people. Lyrelai smiled sadly at her sister. You have a choice to make, Velara. You can try to destroy this world and its people, and learn how dangerous cornered humans can be. Or you can accept that the galaxy has changed and we must change with it. What are you saying? I am saying that Earth will not remain hidden much longer. Humans will spread to the stars whether we want them to or not. We can be their enemies and face the consequences. Or we can be their allies and learn from them. Corvain sputtered in anger. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. They are not primitives, Lorelei said firmly. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. And the most valuable. They have something we lost long ago. What? The ability to grow, to change, to become more than what they were. She looked at Jake, who was calmly watching the standoff. Our empire is perfect, Violara. But perfection means we have stopped evolving. Humans never stop evolving. That makes them more powerful than all our technology. The princess was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke into her communicator. Fleet Command, stand down all weapons. Prepare for diplomatic contact. Corvain stared at her in shock. Your Highness, you cannot be serious. I am completely serious, Admiral. And if you cannot accept orders from the royal family, perhaps you should remain on this world and learn what real strength looks like. The Admiral's face went through several colors before he reluctantly ordered his guards to lower their weapons. Jake finally relaxed, though his rifle remained ready. Smart choice. Coffee's on if anyone wants to talk like civilized people. As the first formal contact between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire began in a simple cabin in the Montana wilderness, Lorelei realized her life would never be the same. She had come to the Forbidden World as a conqueror and discovered she had everything to learn. But she was ready for that challenge. After all, Jake had taught her that the best way to grow stronger was to face the impossible and refuse to give up. The peace talks lasted 3 days and changed the galaxy forever. They met in Jake's cabin around his simple wooden table. On one side sat Princess Violara and her diplomatic team, their elegant forms seeming out of place among the rustic furniture. On the other side, human representatives had arrived from Earth's hidden government, people Jake had contacted through channels Lorelei was only beginning to understand. Admiral Susan Chen led the human delegation. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. General Roberto Martinez joined them by video link from the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Other faces appeared on screens around the cabin, scientists, diplomats, and military officers from across the planet. Jake served coffee to everyone and sat quietly in the corner. He had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a private citizen who had personally introduced two civilizations to each other. Let me be clear about our position, Admiral Chen said on the second day. Humanity has no interest in conquering your empire. We have enough challenges managing our own world. Princess Violara looked relieved. And we have no desire for conflict with your people. But the discovery of Earth changes everything. The old quarantine agreements are meaningless now. Agreed. So we need new agreements. General Martinez spoke from his screen. We've been monitoring galactic communications for 30 years. We know about your expansion patterns, your trade routes, your military capabilities. What we don't understand is why you stopped growing. Violara hesitated. Our civilization reached a point of perfection. There was no need to expand further. But that's exactly when you should expand, Admiral Chen said. When you're strong enough to help others, that's when you have a responsibility to act. Help others do what? Grow, change, become better than they were. Lorelei watched the exchange with fascination. Her people had always seen expansion as conquest, taking resources and adding territory to the empire. But humans saw it as opportunity, the chance to meet new challenges and learn new things. Dr. Sarah Kim, a xenobiologist, leaned forward. Your Highness, may I ask about your people's lifespan? We typically live 8 to 10 centuries, Violara replied. And in all that time, how much do you change? How much do you grow as individuals? The princess considered this. We maintain ourselves. We preserve our knowledge and culture. But do you learn new things? Take on new challenges? Push yourselves to become more than you were? Violara had no answer. In her long life, she had never faced a situation that required her to change or adapt. Everything had been provided for her. Every problem had been solved by existing technology and established procedures. Humans live maybe 100 years if we're lucky. Dr. Kim continued. But we spend those years constantly changing. learning new skills, facing new challenges, becoming different people than we were when we started. By the time we die, we're completely transformed from who we were as children. That sounds exhausting, Vylara said. Jake spoke up from his corner. It's not exhausting. It's exciting. Every day might bring something new. Every problem is a chance to get stronger or smarter or more capable. But what if you fail? Then you learn from the failure and try again. That's how you grow. On the third day, Admiral Corvain arrived with a battle fleet. He had convinced the High Council that Earth posed an immediate threat to Imperial security. 20 warships took positions around the planet, weapons charged and ready. Princess Vylara, Corvain announced over the communication system. You are ordered to evacuate immediately. This world will be sterilized within the hour. The cabin fell silent. Jake calmly refilled his coffee cup. Admiral Chen checked her watch. General Martinez disappeared from his screen, presumably to coordinate Earth's response. Admiral, Vylara said into her communicator, I order you to stand down. I have override authorization from the High Council, Your Highness. The primitive threat must be eliminated. There is no primitive threat. These beings are more advanced than we realized. Impossible. Our sensors show only basic technology. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. Your sensors show what we want them to show. Would you like a demonstration of our actual capabilities? Before Corvain could respond, alarms began screaming throughout his fleet. Enemy contacts were appearing everywhere. Ships decloaking around his vessels, orbital platforms revealing themselves. Weapon signatures lighting up sensors across the entire system. Where did they come from? Corvain demanded. We've been here all along, Admiral Chen replied, waiting for someone to find us. We just hoped it would be someone friendly. The tactical display in the cabin showed the true scope of human space development. Mining stations throughout the asteroid belt, manufacturing facilities on the outer planets, defensive platforms around every major body in the system, and ships, hundreds of them, many larger than anything in the Imperial fleet. This is impossible, Corvain whispered. Primitives could not build such things. We're not primitives, Jake said mildly. We're just careful. When you live on a death world, you learn to prepare for the worst. Admiral Corvain, came a new voice over the communication system. This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Space Command. You are outnumbered and outgunned. I suggest you listen to your princess and stand down. I will not surrender to primitives. Then you will surrender to equals. Your choice. The standoff lasted an hour. Corvain's ships were surrounded but not attacked. Human vessels maintained defensive positions while making it clear they could destroy the alien fleet if necessary. Finally, Princess Vylara took command. Admiral, I am ordering the immediate withdrawal of all Imperial forces. Return to base and report that first contact with Earth has been successful. Your Highness. That is a direct order from the Crown Princess. Disobey it and face treason charges. Corvain had no choice. His ships powered down their weapons and began withdrawing from the system. But as they left, he sent a final message. This is not over. The High Council will not accept the existence of armed primitives in our territory. Then the High Council will have to adapt, Vylara replied, because the primitives aren't going anywhere. 6 months later, Lyrelay stood on the observation deck of the first joint human-Zephyrian research station. The facility orbited Earth's moon, a symbol of the new cooperation between the two species. Through the massive windows, she could see both worlds, the blue marble of Earth and the silver elegance of a Zephyrian city ship that had come to establish formal relations. Ships moved between them constantly, carrying diplomats, scientists, and trade goods. Admiring the view, Jake asked as he joined her at the window. Thinking about how much has changed, she replied. Jake nodded. He wore the uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps now, though he still preferred his old flannel shirts when off duty. Your sister's done good work setting up the cultural exchange programs, and your people have been excellent teachers. Half our citizens are requesting assignment to Earth to study human adaptation techniques. The other half probably think we're crazy. They do, but they're beginning to understand that crazy and effective are not mutually exclusive. Through the window, they watched a Zephyrian science vessel dock with a human cargo ship. Aliens and humans worked together to transfer equipment for a new research project on Jupiter's moons. The High Council finally accepted the new treaty, Lyrelay said. Full diplomatic recognition, open borders, joint exploration agreements. Good. Though I bet Corvain wasn't happy about it. He was reassigned to border patrol duty in the Outer Rim. Very quiet sector. He will have plenty of time to think about the dangers of making assumptions. Jake laughed. Probably still thinks we're primitives. Perhaps, but he can no longer ignore that we are dangerous primitives. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the busy traffic between worlds. The alliance was still new and fragile, but it was growing stronger every day. Humans were learning about galactic technology and culture. Zephyrians were learning about adaptation and resilience. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked. Giving up your empire to become an ambassador? Lorelei considered this. She had abdicated her position as Empress to work full-time on human-Zephyrian relations. Her sister now ruled the empire, with advice from human counselors on dealing with change and challenge. I gave up ruling a perfect empire that never changed, she said finally. In exchange, I got to help build something new that changes every day. I think I got the better deal. Even though it means living with dangerous primitives, she smiled and took his hand. Especially because of that, you taught me that the most beautiful things in the universe are often the most dangerous, and that danger is just another word for opportunity. Below them, Earth turned slowly in space. It still looked like the death world her people had feared for so long. But now Lorelei knew the truth. It was not a world of death, but a world of life, so strong and adaptable that it could survive anything, including the arrival of a lost alien, Empress, who learned that sometimes the best way to rule was to stop ruling and start growing instead. The Forbidden Zone was forbidden no more, and the galaxy would never be the same.